So, a couple of days ago, Putin announced that he's running for president. How he did it is a very important thing to foreshadow what's about to happen next. So, we're going to look at this article about his announcement and where it was, and we're going to also watch this video where he's actually speaking and there's translation, obviously. Okay, so in the article, let's look at that first. So, Putin announced the bid during a meeting with servicemen at which he awarded the Hero of Russia medals to those who had distinguished themselves during the military operation in Ukraine. Okay, so that's the context. He's essentially cloaking himself in the flag. I think this is a bad sign. Most commentators think that this is a sign that he's going to be more militaristic moving forward rather than that it's going to be like just nothing to see here with a special military operation, but that he's going to perhaps push the war even harder once he gets elected, and he's going to shroud himself. Now, this is one of the reasons that he wants Avdiivka so badly. He wants to show that he has a big victory before this. I'm going to run for president of the Russian Federation, he stated. The 2024 presidential election will be held over a 3-day period from March 15th to 17th. This is unusual, but it's part of the package of being able to see, like, yes, we've gotten to see all these people come out and vote, and look, they all voted for me, so there's all this support, whether there's ballot stuffing or not. Now, I talked about this yesterday, where I was reading one article that was talking about how, like, Putin wants two things simultaneously. He wants greater voter turnout, and he wants to see that he wins by a huge percentage. And when you have that, that means that if there is fraud, that it's more easy to detect. But again, dictators think winning by something, I won 90% of the vote is like show of a great sign of force. It's really not. In a democratic country, if you're winning 90% to 10 or something like that, that's actually probably a sign that something went awry. But he doesn't see that. In the United States, what politician has won with 90% of the vote? Think about that. Like, if you win with 60%, it's a blowout, right? Okay, let's keep going. 2024 presidential election will be held over that 3-day period. Vladimir Putin was elected Russia's president in the year 2000. This is going to give you the background, and served 2 4-year terms till 2008. Although presidential terms in the country were technically unlimited at the time, an individual could only serve 2 consecutive terms, and so then he could come back again. So what happened was that Putin subsequently became the prime minister, while Dmitry Medvedev, who was Russia's president between 2008 and 2012, was the president. And then during Medvedev's tenure, the presidential term was extended to 6 years, and then so it expanded the term, and then he could run again. Now it gets even weirder. Putin has remained Russia's president since 2012, and is currently serving his second 6-year term after being reelected in 2018. But then you had an interesting constitutional change. So a major constitutional reform launched back in 2020. Under the new rules, the provision about 2 consecutive terms for one person was abolished, and a hard cap of 2 6-year terms was introduced. So you would think that he would have already covered that, except under an amendment tabled by a renowned cosmonaut turned MP, Putin's terms before the constitutional makeover were nullified, effectively enabling him to run for office again in 2024 and again in 2030, should he desire to do so, which means he could be president of Russia, theoretically, until 2036. How about that? As old as he would be at the time. Several public figures and politicians have already announced their intent to run. Independent candidates must collect at least 300,000 signatures from their backers to file a bid, while those nominated by registered parties must gather 100,000. Okay, not a problem. This list of hopefuls includes several liberal figures, including Dustovka, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, a journalist and member of a local MP, longtime opposition figure Nahadzin, a former MP and now a national legislator backed by the center-right party of Civic, and Lipatov, a lawyer and activist. None of them have a prayer. I know some of you will say, stay away from the windows. Okay. There's also Igor Girkin, who's in jail, a former field commander who briefly served as the defense minister in the Donetsk People's Republic early on in the conflict, has also announced. Now, who you didn't hear, oh, sorry, there's one more, Anatoly Rabinovich, a lesser well-known politician and public advocate, has announced that his intent to run for presidency. What you didn't hear about was Navalny, who is in jail and is barred from being able to run. So there's a reason that he's barred from being able to run. So now he has a field of Putin, who's going to clean up, against these other five whose opinions or whose vote will be fragmented. So that's, a normal way of doing it, but they will stuff the boxes anyway if there's any question about it. And they're probably going to do it just because of political pride or points, or, wanting to raise the percentage in order to look like he's got more of a mandate, which will actually look like he's been more of a crook. Now, I said something the other day with this. This was just yesterday in my three big stories, where I said that, like, if you're doing the math and you realize nobody's voting for you, except now that was a little bit too much. There will be plenty of people that will vote for Putin. And so I'm standing corrected from that. There will be plenty of people who will vote for him. But when the percentage gets up into the 80–90% range, you'll see that there's something not quite right. Okay, let's look at this video when he's doing this. So he just came from this medal ceremony. And remember, everything is staged in Russian media. So this was not by accident that they focused on, they had the cameras on him when he decides to say, well, I plan to run. As he's talking to service members, he's flanked by service members still standing at attention in the background. Okay, here we go.
There's a lot of work to be done. We need to integrate into Russia, to socially adapt to this new situation and return to normal, peaceful life. And would like to do that under your leadership.
I would like to do that under your leadership, because you're so dreamy, you're so awesome. Please save us, Hero Putin. I mean, like, they're setting him up with this question. I wonder how long the guy practiced the question before asking him that, but they're setting it up to make it look like Putin is just, there's a mandate. We need you, Putin, right?
Our president, and we are your team. We need you for Russia. Well, thank you. Truth be told, I've had different thoughts at different times, but
he had different thoughts at different times about running for president. Like, he was at some point contemplating, I'm not going to do this again. Sure, he did. Okay, let's keep going.
At this time, I must say that I will stand with the people. I will run for re-election.
Okay, so he will run for re-election. Now, it's interesting how long he is saying before he's deciding to run for re-election, because the election's not just a few months away. It's in March. In the United States, they've been running for election for the presidency for the last, I don't know, 6–9 months, maybe even a little bit longer. And the election's not until next November, not March. So we'll see how, the contrast is really palpable. Okay, so that's what you need to know about the election. If you have other questions about what's going to happen in the election in Russia, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to entertain them and think through them. You're going to ask things that I might not even have thought about. So that's what we know so far. I don't think anybody is going to be surprised that Putin will win this election. In fact, the big surprise would be if something didn't work out that way. All right. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.